Good Sunday morning to you. I am Big Race Jim. You're watching Past the Wire TV. This is Sunday Morning Coffee brought to you by Shorebet Coffee and AmWager. And I was thinking this morning as I flipped open the laptop to record this that we've been doing this for about 2 months now, and it seems like the response has been quite good. So thanks to everybody for watching consistently. We've had some big Oaks or Derby prep to talk about just about every week since we kicked this off. So without a Derby prep, let's talk about the Kentucky Derby. The field is pretty much set aside from, what we've seen in the last couple of years. Some horses that are in the field of 20 that aren't training well or catch a fever or whatever. So there might be a couple of horses that still get into the field, but I was reading yesterday that everyone in the field of 20 is confirmed that they would like to have their next start in the Derby. So, for whatever that's worth, the field is set from that standpoint. Um, and you never want to see horses um, not be able to start in the Derby if they've earned those 20 one of those coveted 20 spots in the starting gate. But every year there's always a couple. And the big horse that's on the outside looking in right now is Baeza. And I've got some not so super fancy power ratings that I'll share here in a minute. um, Not of his because he's not in the field just yet, but um, so his name won't be on the list. But um, he's on the outside looking in, and his power rating was quite high in the way that I do it, which I'll explain. It's it's not proprietary by any stretch, um, but him and journalism were the only two that had a power rating over 600. How that relates to years past, um, who knows? I haven't taken the time yet to go back and review all of the data from past years to see. But I think we've kind of seen over the years some goofy things, um, and how these historical trends really cloud people's judgment. Um, you know, Remember it was always dosage, right? A horse that had it was a small number too. Was it like two or four? Like you needed a certain dosage number to have a chance, and that was a big eliminating factor for a lot of horses. And then the other trend was that you needed to have had a start at two, right? The curse of Apollo, and then Justify comes comes along and stuffs everybody in a locker throughout the Triple Crown, um, and nobody talks about that anymore. And it's been tough the last couple of years with the presence of these international horses because it switches up the pace dynamics of the race now that they've moved to this point system. And the first couple of years that they did this, the race was always run like pretty true to form. It felt like, right? One of the top five choices was winning, and maybe that's because those horses were just superior to the others, right? I said last week, I believe that going through the field every year, you can look and there's like 10 maybe that you feel like have a legitimate shot. Um, so perhaps those horses were just part of that group. But you have Rich Strike, 80 to 1. Um, you have even Mystic Dan, right? I think he was like 16 to 1 last year, maybe even a little bit higher. So um, it's been tough. It's been a tough go the last couple of years to pick the winner. I remember sending out a tweet last year as I was sitting in the Uber back to the hotel from Churchill Downs, and I had everybody else. I had second, third, fourth, fifth pegged. Just didn't have Mystic Dan, and didn't have any money at the end of the day to show for it. So all that to say, horse racing is a tough game. We'll see how the field kind of shifts and adjusts over the next couple of weeks. But let's dive in because we've heard of the Derby dozen. We've heard of top 5, top 10, um, and I like to do things a little bit differently. So we've got a top 6 for no reason other than the graphic looks cool. So here are my personal top 6 Kentucky Derby win contenders as I see it on April 13th at 6 o'clock in the morning, Central Standard Time. And again, this number on the side is just this basic power rating that I'll explain here in the next couple of minutes. And it doesn't include Baeza because he's not in the field. So I reserve the right I reserve the right to change this between now and May 3rd or whatever it is. So looking at this, to me, journalism just pops off the screen. Um, he's done everything right. He's shown the ability to take a lot of dirt in his face. He's shown the ability to, navigate traffic. Um, he likes to fight and dig in down the stretch, and that's a positive. Rodriguez really jumped on my radar after the Wood last week. Uh, did not have any interest in this horse in that race or prior races really, but he showed me something, and I think you have to look again at these pace dynamics with these international horses coming in, and the last couple times that they've been in there, they fly out of there like a rocket. So it'll be interesting to see what Rodriguez does. Could it be just a front running score like a Medina Spirit type of run where um, they just kind of go around and they can't catch him? Or I believe, granted it was COVID year, but I'm pretty sure Authentic did the same thing, kind of took everybody all the way around. So it's possible. I like Rodriguez's chances if he can kind of get out in front like that, and be able to pull away. I thought that Wood Memorial was pretty good. Um, River Thames was another one that got a pretty high power rating, and I've always been impressed with this horse. Uh, Let me drop that just so you guys aren't staring at a graphic, and I can pull up some stats and kind of talk through this. Um, where'd he go? Sorry, this is bad TV. This is bad TV. I'm just trying to find. There he is. Okay. Yeah. So third in the bluegrass. Last time for River Thames, and I think his race was a little bit better um, than we thought. Right, came a little wide into the stretch, and it was kind of bit of a hot pace in front of him, and he was able to stick around and kind of be in the mix late. I don't think he lost anything in defeat there. Um, East Avenue coming out of there, I thought East Avenue ran a bang up race. He just hasn't been able to prove he can run anywhere other than Keeneland. And I know he had that tough break at the Breeders' Cup, um, but you know, for East Avenue to come back in the Derby and again try and take them all the way around, I think I'd like a horse like Rodriguez to do that over a horse like East Avenue. But River Thames with that 577 rating coming out of the bluegrass, and was up on albeit pretty swift pace early on. They did kind of slow down late. They went the mile and an eighth in 151 and one, which is in reality not all that fast. Um, Tappan Street. Now, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, and I don't know that I saw any reason why. But what is Tappan Street? I feel like that's a famous thing that I'm missing because my brain wants to just say Tappan Street. Tappan Street, in my in my opinion, sounds a hell of a lot better than Tappan. But um, what do I know? Again, this horse has done just about everything right. I liked the Florida Derby win. A couple weeks ago, I said, Sovereignty didn't lose anything in defeat there, and I think that's true. Um, Japan Street has that sort of stalking running style that makes him dangerous in here. Sovereignty again, I thought has been one of the top two or three horses that we've seen on the Derby Trail so far. So he's definitely a player for me. And then my little bit of a wild card is this Cole battle. He's kind of cleaning up in the early preps at Oaklawn, and then that Arkansas Derby um, was better than it looks, in my opinion. You had his trainer say after the race that he wished he had time to get another work into him, which is always kind of crazy to me. Just like um, how much one 4 furlong, 5 furlong breeze can improve a horse's fitness. Um, but they were absolutely flying early on in this race, and everything kind of slowed down late. But he was up on this pace the entire time and was in a good stalking position. And it seems like he just got a little bit tired late in the race because they were going so fast early. But he was the only one that hung around. You have Sandman that came from 13 lengths, 13 lengths out of it. His late pace for Sandman on Brisnet was an 88. which is not not great for a horse to, kind of scoop up the field like that. You'd expect a little bit of a bigger figure when looking at the Brisnet. So, like, for example, journalism had a 109 late pace last time out. Baeza 102, Rodriguez 101, uh, Sovereignty in 97. So the late pace is always one of those factors that I look at very closely. It's one of the main figures that I look at, especially in a race like the Derby, where everybody's going to be going longer than they ever have. Um, and I think that late pace, shows you just about how much stamina these horses are going to have. And I think Sandman was just the beneficiary of um, a hot pace early on and took advantage of some tiring horses late. I will say though, to his credit, his power rating is 581, which is just one of only a couple that are in that 580 range and up. Um, let's see what publisher did. Yeah, publisher, was maybe 16 lengths out of it early, 8 lengths out of it along the back stretch, and was again also able to just kind of pick off some of these tiring horses. So in that Arkansas Derby, so for me, I thought Cole Battle uh, represented himself pretty well in his ability to kind of hang around. And yeah, he lost by 7 lengths, but um, he was the only one that finished in the money that was up on that pace, and for the most part was able to stick around. So um, I wanted to include him in the mix. I think he has an outside puncher's chance in here, and you're going to get a pretty darn good price. So the rest of them, I don't know that there's anything super surprising about about these, right? They most of them won their last key prep, or at least finished second. And you know, I'm not really sticking my neck out um, completely just yet. But for now, like I said, on April 13th, with a couple of weeks to go, these are my top 6 Kentucky Derby win contenders with this power rating. Now, to explain how I do the power rating, everybody knows I'm a big Brisnet player. That's where I get a lot of my information. Brisnet and the pace points. If you haven't started using pace points yet, you can get them through the Tracking Trips membership at passthewire.com. They've been super handy. But on Brisnet, one of the things that I do just to kind of separate some of the field is I just simply add up 3 figures in the Brisnet. I look at their E2 pace figure, so that's like the middle of the race. I look at their late pace figure, which is down the stretch, basically final quarter, and I look at their speed rating, and I add those 3 numbers up for their last 2 preps, and just add the total, and that is literally it. And it is just a guide, right? Um, it's not super fancy. It's just a guide to help me get a sense of who is consistently running higher figures than the rest of the field. And I've been doing it for years. Um, have I been great in the Kentucky Derby in terms of ROI lately? No, I'll be the first to admit that. But I have been able to pinpoint who's going to run well. So if you need a horse that's going to hit the money, be like your, exacta, trifecta, superfecta key horse that's going to be in there, I'm your guy. As far as the win end, I haven't been great. I haven't been great the last couple of years, but we've always been right around it. Thanks in part to using this super simple um, addition formula, not even a formula, it's just math, um, to just give me I call it a power rating, but it's really just a solid figure for each horse to then that I can then compare. So I'm not just staring at, um, a sheet of a bunch of different numbers. So what I've done with that is, like I said, journalism was at 628, Sandman 581, uh, Burnham Square 572, Rodriguez 582. Let's see who else is getting some play here. Citizen Bowl 574, East Avenue 526. This American Promise 579 coming out of the Virginia Derby. Um, I don't have anything for the international horses, but this Baeza was the other one, 609. So let's see if he gets into the field. Um, but you have another couple of other horses on the outside looking in that um, you know is Matacat Road in now? 550, Grande 556. Although that Wood Memorial was pretty impressive. So you just have to think, a horse like that went from an optional claimer, you know, basically an allowance race, into the wood and improve significantly. This 556 is just a guide, right? That horse has every opportunity to take another step forward, and I think would be an interesting player in there. Um, so that's it. This week I'll put together an article for PassTheWire.com and list out all the horses with that number, just so you guys have it. But you're welcome to go to Brisnet and do it yourself, so you have it today. But yeah, that's the basics of it for me, just to kind of separate the field and see who stands above on a figure standpoint, because that final speed figure only tells us so much, right? And everybody else has that. Everybody who downloads Brisnet has these figures too and could easily do this. Um, but I do think it's a little bit of a unique way to kind of get the top end of the field and then the low end of the field, and allows me to kind of narrow it down, right? Because we tend to think like, the Derby's this wild race and anything can happen. And Mystic Dan last year, bit of a surprise. Rich Strike, certainly. Um, who won the Derby um, in between there? I forget. Um, but anyway, you do have a lot of horses behind those horses that were tops in the field. So it gives you a good snapshot. Like I said, I'll put something together this week for the website that kind of lists them all out so you have them. But yeah, those were my top six: journalism, Rodriguez, River Thames, Tappan Street, Sovereignty, and my wild card right now is Coal Battle. Um, And again, that's their power rating, just adding up their E2, LP, and speed figures from the last 2 races using Brisnet, not rocket science. I think the next couple weeks as we get closer to the Derby, unless there's something wild that happens on the racetrack, I'll just be kind of going through the field for the Derby and talking about, long shots that I like, that I'm interested in, horses to hit the board. So we'll keep going through all of those. But let's take a quick time out. I've been talking for 25 minutes, and you probably need a break from that. So stick around. We'll come back. We'll do the last sip, and we'll wrap things up. Go.
It's simplification and Javier.
And they're off in the Kentucky Derby.
For some, they say it's the most exciting 2 minutes in sports. For us, it's about potential financial opportunities. Never bring a knife to a gunfight, and make no mistake, big money is up for grabs, and this is a fight. Never settle for second best. The Past the Wire annual Kentucky Derby seminar. Nobody does it better. Preparation is key. Be better prepared, delve deeper, stealth. They won't see us coming, and they won't know we're there. Money management, ticket structure, pace, all the intangibles, thoroughgraph, everything that matters to make it count, to have that edge. In the end, if things go as planned, it'll be like we stole the money.
Get your seats. Get your seats. I like to include a couple of those shots of Gun Pilot from the Churchill Downs Stakes last year, because John was all over him during the seminar. And so that was nice for John and for everybody that joined and had some money on him. But it's also a reminder that for me, over the 2 days, Oaks and Derby weekend, Gun Pilot was the only ticket that I cashed over the entire 2 days of betting just about every single race. I had that exact, I want to say it paid maybe 80 bucks, 90 bucks, something like that. Tough sledding out there at Churchill Downs for me last year, but I'll be in the seminar. I'll be watching. I'll be paying attention. John always does a fantastic job. So it's one that you won't want to miss, certainly. So please get your seats, come hang out, listen along, and finalize your plays for Oaks and Derby weekend. The Queen was back yesterday. Torpedo Anna. All right, so I've ragged on this horse a bunch, and it doesn't make me feel good. I'll be honest; it doesn't make me feel good. But I'm gonna have to brag on her again this morning. I don't know what it is. My mentality. I was talking to my wife about this yesterday because we were headed out for a nice little date night, and as we were getting in the car, before I pulled away from the curb, the apple blossom was going off, so I had it on the phone. I was sitting there watching it. And I told her, I was like, "Oh, Torpedo Anna's running again." And she was like, "Oh, nice." And I said, "I don't know what it is. I just can't get excited about this horse for some reason." And she said, "Well, I know why." And I was like, "Why is that?" And she goes, "Because everybody else loves her, and you always just have to go against the grain." And maybe that's true. That's always been kind of part of my mentality. If there's this like something that most everybody likes, I just naturally have to dislike it for some reason. But this is no knock on her. Maybe this isn't a knock on her. But that older filly and mare division is just bad. It is just bad, 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 bad. And Torpedo Anna is just knocking them around every 4 or 5 weeks. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is that there just is not, there's not anyone that can contend with her right now. And, maybe when we get into the summer at Saratoga, um, you see a filly or mare kind of step up. They always do around that time of year. Um, and, um, and be in the mix, but she is just knocking everybody silly, and there's just no competition, and it's upsetting. And then they're going to wheel her back in the La Troyenne on Derby weekend. I want to say that's on Friday, typically, um, on Oaks Day, on the Oaks undercard. And like, who's she going to face in there? I was looking around to see if there were like any probables, and Horse Racing Nation had Hoosier Philly listed, and I had no idea that horse was even running. So I don't know. Maybe this is just a jumping off point, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But it would be nice to see her maybe run against the boys again, perhaps on Belmont weekend. That'd be cool. Maybe she lands in the Whitney. That would be cool. But right now, she is making a mockery of that older filly and mare division, which is just full of allowance horses at best, at best. Um, and that stinks. But kudos to her. She's taking advantage of it, keeps cashing checks, and everybody continues to love her. And I didn't play the race yesterday, but we'll see who shows up in that La Troyenne. Maybe that's the time to take a shot against. We'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap it here. Big race gyms, top 6 Kentucky Derby win contenders. I'll show it to you one more time. Journalism, Rodriguez, River Thames, Tappan Street, Sovereignty, and Coal Battle. As of right now, I reserve the right to change my mind as we go through. Look for that article at some point this week with all of the power ratings from these horses, and we will see you back here next week. Thanks for watching Sunday Morning Coffee on Past the Wire TV with Big Race Jim, presented by SureBet Coffee and our good friends at AmWager. Have a great week.